Thank you, Liza, for let us have this interview for you for Enlace Judío. And when did you start writing?
Well, I started writing in the 1990s. I did my PhD degree and my first book, Nazi Family Policy, came out from my degree.
What is the theme in your books, and particularly the last one?
I'm a social historian of Nazi Germany, so I write my books about different aspects of social and cultural life in the Third Reich. And the last book that I did was an edited book called Life and Times in Nazi Germany, and that looks at different aspects of daily life.
Okay. Are there any Holocaust survivors in your family?
There are no Holocaust survivors in my family because my family doesn't originate from that part of Europe. So my father's side of the family actually comes from Central Asia, from Bukhara, so we're Bukharian Jews, and my mum's also from the same background, but she was born in the United Kingdom, so her family was already in Britain by the 1930s.
So how come did you start going into this theme?
So I've always been interested in history from when I was a child, always studied it, and I think that I particularly became interested in this subject during my first degree at university. So I was at the London School of Economics, and I had a fantastic course there that I did on the history of Nazism and fascism, and my interest really developed from there. And now, 4 books later, here I sit talking to you.
What type of research did you do for the book? Did you travel to Germany?
So I've done a lot of research over the years in archives in Germany. So I've been to Berlin, Munich, and some of the other cities. So I've been to the Federal Archive in Germany and some less well-known archives as well.
Were there any hurdles in the research or on writing this book and other books?
Okay. So there are always hurdles researching and writing a book. So sometimes it can be a matter of not finding the sources that you want and having to really explore that bit harder and really find accurate and useful sources and resources. So the primary research is very important. I think the other thing with my field, Nazi Germany and the related subject of the Holocaust, is that they're so well written about, such well-trammeled fields, that it can be difficult to find a new area of research. So my PhD obviously was new research, and since then as well, just trying to find different areas of life in Nazi Germany to discuss, because both the fields of the Holocaust and Nazi Germany have massive literatures, and I've succeeded, so that's very pleasing. I haven't interviewed either Holocaust survivors or Germans who lived through the period, but I've obviously looked at accounts and testimonies of Holocaust survivors and also accounts of people who lived through the Third Reich, so a sense of what everyday life was for the ordinary German. I haven't done any work on the perpetrators, however.
How do you feel when you write and investigate about what happened on the Holocaust? Even we know a lot from going to museums and reading and meeting survivors. How was your feeling?
It's very difficult investigating the Holocaust and subjects related to it because it can be very distressing. And as I said, whilst it's not to do with investigating my own family's history, I think there's sort of still the personal element there, being Jewish, that you're looking at people of your own kind, looking at your own people, the history of your own people. So there's certainly something subjective there. Of course, as a historian, you have to take a step back and deal with the facts as they present themselves.
Have you interviewed any survivors, Jewish survivors? in UK?
No, I haven't interviewed any survivors, but I've done a lot of work reading testimonies, so both in archives like in Yad Vashem in Jerusalem and at the Leo Baeck archive in New York. So I've sort of done some work with original sources there, and I've also done quite a lot of work on published survivor testimony, so looking at survivors and the way that they've written their accounts and their narratives.
What else can you tell me about your own, I'm not going to ask anything about your own thinking or research and anything.
Okay, so obviously my own field is the history of Nazi Germany, and that's something I've specialised in writing on for a very long time. At the moment I'm writing a book on genocide more widely, so looking at the Holocaust and looking at the Nazi destruction of the Sinti and Roma, the Gypsies as well, but also looking at other cases, particularly in the 20th century. So I'm looking at the Armenian genocide that took place during the First World War, and then looking at some other cases as well in the post-war period. So I'm looking at the Pol Pot regime, the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, and having a look at the decimation of the population there. And then moving to the 1990s to have a look at the genocides that took place particularly in Bosnia and in Rwanda. And then even investigating into the 21st century. Unfortunately, this phenomenon is still with us, and I'll be looking also at the genocide in Darfur in Sudan.
I feel that from all the time, people hear, mankind hear about genocides and this, and we are getting used to hear about it. What do you think about it?
I think we have got very used to hearing about all of these mass atrocities, crimes against humanity, genocide, and I think we're still not very good at dealing with it and preventing it, and looking at ways to eradicate this as a phenomenon for the future. And I think there's a lot of researchers and people working in the field who are working to try and improve these things, making new laws, trying to introduce humanitarian aid and those kinds of things in conflict areas across the globe. But it's like a drop in the ocean, really.
And I feel that the young people, the young generation, they are not into all the things that are happening in the world. What do you think about it?
I think it's quite difficult to make young people understand or even have a knowledge of the history and of these kinds of atrocities, but I think it's very important that they do, and that's why I'm a university lecturer, and I've been teaching students, many cohorts of students over many years, and I think education helps, but I think you're right, it's not the only thing that we need to do. Yes, there's the responses of different governments across the globe, the response of the UN, which has a very difficult job and which we know doesn't always intervene early enough or enough over many historical cases. So yes, it's just a case of seeing what the future holds. I think education is a way, and it's my way, but of course it's not the only way.